Hotep, everybody. Welcome in, welcome in. Let me get everything set up correctly. Make sure that my audio is good. I want to make sure the visual is good. Um, Make sure my PowerPoint is set up correctly. And we're gonna get off into it. So if y'all just bear with me for just a second. If you'll bear with me for just a second, let me just get everything set up how I need it set up so we can do this the right way. Y'all know how I like to do it on this channel. Give me just a second. And do me a favor though, as you come in the building, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when I go live, and that you can be notified whenever I drop new content. So you can be up to date with the channel and be up to date with the information. You guys know that I like to bring things that no one else that I have seen is actually bringing to the internet, and I actually like to bring a particular dynamic to the conversation that isn't brought by anyone else. Okay, it sounds like my audio is good. Let me get a sip of my coffee, and we're gonna get right off into it, family. Thanks for joining me. All right. Well, Hotel, welcome back to Matthew Daniels TV. I'm your host, Matthew Daniels, the writer, author, scribe, and bookworm. But I'm not just a bookworm world. I am the real bookworm. I'm doing the book game like it ain't never been done before. And I'm doing the book game like it'll probably never be done again. Remember that. And as always, may your name live on forever, family. And may your memory never die. May you be one of the honored ancestors after you pass on from this realm. Hotel, Ashe, Shalom, peace, all that good stuff. Now, y'all see the title. This one is going to be really good. I'm going to be bringing you guys a couple of stories in this video right here that I promise you're going to be interested. You want to sit here through the whole video. If you're not able to watch the whole video, make sure you come back, because the things that I'm going to be sharing with you guys, I guarantee some of these specific stories, some of this specific information you never heard before. But y'all see the title. Today, we're going to be talking about Maria Laveau, Graveyard Hoodoo, Offerings to the Ancestors, Curses, and Conjure. So we're going to be covering a wide range of topics. Now, these wide range of topics, they all have areas where they overlap and intersect. And you're going to see what I mean as we move forward with this video. But I'm going to be hitting on a lot of different topics. Now, some of you may have heard the name Maria Laveau before, so you may have some kind of idea about where I'm going to be going with this video. But I promise you, I'm going to be throwing you a curveball. Now, I've been teaching you guys lately about our ancestors, and I've been teaching you about hoodoo, and I've been teaching you some of the practices that our ancestors engaged in on the plantation in Africa prior to being enslaved in the Americas, and what our ancestors practiced after slavery, and what a lot of our ancestors and what a lot of our current elders and individuals alive today practice, but is more so practiced on the underground circuit right now today. Now, one thing that I have been pointing out is the idea in hoodoo of ancestor worship. Now, a lot of times when individuals hear that, their minds automatically go to the idea or the concept that what we are saying is our ancestors are worshipped as if they are God, as if they are the creator of the heavens and earth and of the vastness of the universe. That's not it at all. Another word that you can use, if you don't like the term worship, ancestor worship, you can easily replace that with ancestor veneration. What we're simply talking about is highlighting, venerating, holding up high those who have come before us, because it is the things that those who came before us have done which enables us to enjoy the things that we enjoy today. And an individual alive today, if you have a particularly powerful, upright, influential, charismatic ancestor that you can look up to, a human being just like yourself, then you can imitate that ancestor in your life and attempt to be the best human being that you can be. And also, by you attempting to be the best human being that you can be and creating a world that your descendants, your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren can inherit and be proud of, perhaps that your grandchildren, great grandchildren, and great great grandchildren will also honor you and the efforts that you are putting in right now on this planet Earth. So we're not talking about ancestor worship in the sense of saying that our ancestors are the creator of the universe. No, they were humans just like us. But what we're saying is we want to remember them, we want to honor them, we want to revere them, and we want to understand that what they did while they were alive affects our lives today. And we understand that we will one day be an ancestor. So we also understand that what we are doing today will affect the next generation. So in Hoodoo, when you have this ancestor veneration or this so-called ancestor worship or the holding up of the ancestors high, that ultimately began to translate into hoodoos and conjures and offerings being left at actual grave sites. The idea is that where these particular ancestors are buried, the place in which a lot of ancestors are buried, because those bodies are buried there, the spiritual energy in that area is more potent than the spiritual energy in a random location, right? This concept can be found in several other cultures as well. Have you ever heard someone talk about, you don't want to build a building on a graveyard because you might upset the spirits and they may come back and haunt you, or you don't want to dig up the ancient Native American burial grounds when you're trying to build a casino or something like that, because you may upset those ancestral spirits. This concept is replete through multiple cultures, multiple societies, multiple civilizations over thousands of years. So what you're going to see is with our ancestors and with the practice of hoodoo, a lot of times they would go to the graveyards, specifically to the graves of these ancestors that they held high, and they would leave them offerings. And they would leave them offerings because they wanted those ancestors to do work for them in the ancestral or the spirit realm. But they also held the idea that the graveyard dirt, the dirt from the graveyard, was potent enough to be used in their spells, their potions, and when they were trying to conjure and curse an individual. Okay, and even the bones of an ancestor, the bones of an ancestor held a certain type of spiritual energy and spiritual power that could be harnessed and used. So what we're going to highlight in this particular video, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you some of our ancestors leaving offerings at graves and what they anticipated or what they hope to gain from that, so you can have a firsthand idea and understanding of why they did it. And I'm going to show you individuals trying to conjure and perform hoodoo and curse spells utilizing tombs, graves, graveyards, graveyard bones, and graveyard dirt. So we're going to be talking about Maria Laveau, graveyard hoodoo, offerings to the ancestors, curses, and conjure, just so we can all better understand what hoodoo actually looked like on the ground to our ancestors. Now, one of the primary sources that I'm going to be using in this particular video is a newspaper article that was posted in the Washington Post August 6th, 1905. That's August 6th, 1905. So this is after the Civil War, around 50 years or so after the Civil War. So this is after our ancestors were no longer enslaved. They were still practicing hoodoo and they were still practicing voodoo. And what I'm going to show you guys is some interesting things that was noticed in a particular graveyard in New Orleans. Okay, so let's get right off into it. Now, the headline of this particular article, I see we got a comment in the chat. Hotel Brooklyn Zoo, Hotel Brooklyn Zoo. Good to see you, fam. I hope all is well. I hope all is well, brother. So look at the headline of this particular article. It says, Old Tombs Hoodoos still practicing the black art in New Orleans. Girls' discovery of tongue. Stick with me. Wrapped about with quantity of thread and stuck full of pins, work of expert in conjuring. Sexton tells of finding dead cat stuffed with money and other things possessing quote unquote powers. So one of the things we're going to be looking at a tongue, which you're going to find out later is a cow's tongue that was used in a particular hoodoo inside of the a graveyard in New Orleans, and a dead cat that was stuffed with money. Okay, that was stuffed with money. We're going to get a first-hand look at what some of these conjuring items looked like. Sandra Askew in the chat says, good morning, good evening, Ampu, the real bookworm. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday to you too, sister. Thanks for tapping in as always. I appreciate the constant support. I hope everything is going well. I hope everything is going well with you, and I hope everything is going well with everyone else in the building. Okay. Now this is going to get crazy. I'm not going to lie to you. This story is crazy. When I read this, I was like, I have to bring this to, I have to bring this to the people because it's interesting and it's real. Okay, it's interesting and it's real. Look, check this out. Now we're gonna read the article. I promise I'm gonna break this thing down for you guys. You know how I get down. Look what it says. Now, this happened in New Orleans, July 28th in 1905. Now, the image that you're looking at on the right, that's an artist rendition of the cemetery in New Orleans that we're going to be talking about. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you some actual pictures of it. But let's get started. The article says, the hoodoo still has believers in New Orleans, as was revealed the other day when an ordinary beef tongue wrapped tightly with white thread and stuck full of pins and needles was found in one of the tombs in the old St. Louis cemetery. So they found a cow's tongue, stick with me, they found a cow's tongue wrapped tightly with white thread and stuck full of pins and needles. Now, let me set the stage. Now, this was found in the St. Louis Cemetery in New Orleans. So, the St. Louis Cemetery in New Orleans, that is the St. Louis Cemetery. That is the name of three Catholic. This is all going to make sense as we go forward. This is the name of three Catholic cemeteries in New Orleans, Louisiana. Most of the graves are above ground vaults constructed in the 18th and 19th centuries. Cemeteries number 1 and cemetery number 2 are included on the National Register of Historic Places and the Louisiana African American Heritage Trail. So these particular this particular cemetery structure that we're talking about is one of the most famous cemeteries in New Orleans, Louisiana. And pay attention, it's a Catholic cemetery. Remember that, because we're talking about conjure items found in this cemetery, this Catholic cemetery. What are hoodoo items being found in a Catholic cemetery for. Now, this St. Louis cemetery, that's the name of 3 different cemetery plots, right? Now, St. Louis Cemetery number 1, that's the oldest. It is the oldest and among the most prominent cemeteries in New Orleans. It was opened in 1789, replacing the city's older St. Peter Cemetery as the main burial ground when the city was redesigned after a fire in 1788. And what you're seeing on your screen is an actual photograph of St. Louis Cemetery number 1. Now, the article isn't explicit in this regard, but I believe the article is talking about either St. Louis Cemetery number 1 or St. Louis Cemetery number 2. And I'm going to explain why I believe that here shortly. Now, St. Louis Cemetery number 2 is located some 3 blocks back from St. Louis number 1, bordering Claiborne Avenue. It was consecrated in 1823. A number of notable jazz and rhythm and blues musicians are buried here, including Danny Barker and Ernie K. Doe. Also entombed here is Andre Kalu. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. African-American Union hero and martyr of the American Civil War. So there are prominent African Americans buried in these St. Louis cemeteries in New Orleans. And even right whether you see what they say, there's a number of notable jazz and rhythm and blues musicians. Fun fact: the musical style known as jazz and even the rhythm and blues, right? A good portion of it is derived directly from ways in which our ancestors who came from Africa made music. So some of the underlying tones of jazz and rhythm and blues can find their link directly in the tones and styles of music that came over from America. That came over from Africa, right? Now, this is a picture of St. Louis Cemetery number 2. Now, St. Louis Cemetery number 3 is located some 2 miles back from the French Quarter, some 30 blocks from the Mississippi, fronting Esplanade Avenue near Bayou St. John. It opened in 1854. The crypts, on average, are more elaborate than at the other St. Louis cemeteries, including a number of fine 19th century marble tombs. Those entombed include ragtime composer Paul Sarabrusso, photographer E.J. Belloc, and painter Ralston Crawford. Another to be entombed here is Sweet Emma Barrett, a self-taught jazz piano player and singer. New Orleans Mayor Ernest N. Dutch Morial was reinterred at St. Louis Cemetery number 3 in a new tomb for the Morial family. So you can see just how the article said in the beginning, the majority of the graves here, they aren't people buried 6 feet deep. Right, there aren't just mounds where people are buried 6 feet deep with a tombstone. A lot of these are above ground structures. Okay, and this is one of the most prominent cemeteries in New Orleans, and there are a lot of famous people buried here, and a lot of influential people in New Orleans are actually buried at the St. Louis Cemetery number 1, number 2, and number 3. So it's not a coincidence that in the story that we're reading, that this particular quote unquote hoodoo was found in one of the tombs of the old St. Louis Cemetery. They're going there because it all ties into the ancestor worship or the ancestor veneration. They're going to where the most prominent, powerful people are buried. I want you guys to remember that. So we're looking at the most important cemetery in all of New Orleans, the year 1905. Let's continue. The tongue was put in an old tomb In that portion of the St. Louis Cemetery lying in the square bounded by St. Louis County and Robertson Streets and Claiborne Avenue. Now, based on those streets, I believe that they're talking about either St. Louis Cemetery number 1 or St. Louis Cemetery number 2. Most likely number 1, but it could be either 1 or 2. In my mind, I'm not 100% sure. But the article goes on to say, this particular burial spot lies nearest the Conti Street entrance to the cemetery. You can't miss it. It will attract your attention almost as soon as you enter the burial ground. It is one of those low tombs built probably immediately after the last cemetery had been opened. Just a small part of the brickwork is visible to the eye, owing to the growth of tall weeds, grass, rubbish, and other things. For that reason, and unless you had stood over the tomb or low vault, you could not possibly have noticed the tongue. A woman did. A woman did what? Notice the tongue. Now, just for a frame of reference for your mind, I put a picture of a cow's tongue on your screen. So this is what we're talking about, dressed up in a specific manner that they're going to describe in detail as we move forward. But if you've never seen a cow tongue, this is what one looks like. So look, when they're talking about the woman who found it, she was slowly walking through the cemetery when this especially low tomb attracted her attention. She tried to read the inscription on the old wooden plate, but was unable, owing to its great age. It was while she gazed so intently at this wooden headboard that she noticed the tongue, which has since caused at least 2 young girls to lose a few hours sleep each night. They have gone to bed since the tongue first put in its appearance. At first, this woman thought the tongue a Mardi Gras mask or something similar. But once she moved it slightly, she saw very plainly what the object which attracted her attention really was. Okay, so you have a lady. She's walking through the tombs. She's reading some of the names on the tombs. She's it doesn't explicitly say why she's in there. She could have been in there looking for one of her specific ancestors to leave them flowers or something. Or since it's a very prominent cemetery and there are famous people there and individuals go there just to see the tombs of these famous people, she may have just been walking through, just looking at some of the names on the tomb, some of the names on the tombstone. Just almost in a manner of a tourist to a famous location. This is a very prominent cemetery. But look what they say. Her curiosity jarred. One of the assistants to the sexton, and that's just one of the assistants who were working at this particular cemetery, one of the groundskeepers. One of the assistants to the sexton was called to the scene, and it was only a question of a minute or two before he had the tongue out in broad daylight. He held the thing high up in his hands. At the jump, he did not know what it really was. It had been fixed up in such a shape that an expert on tongues would have hesitated before giving a definite answer as to what it was. The manner in which the assistant handled the object, which was intended to conjure someone, scared the 2 young girls to such an extent that they were mightily tempted to run out of the cemetery and never enter it again. However, the little crowd which congregated about the assistant reassured the 2 girls, and they were finally induced to take a good look at the tongue. They did this with horror written on their faces. One of them said, after that, she would not go through a similar experience. So basically, what they're describing is there is the woman who found this who found the tongue, the item used to conjure. There's the individual who works at the cemetery. There's these 2 young girls at the cemetery, and then there's also a crowd which is congregating around this particular area. Remember, this is a famous cemetery. A lot of famous people are buried here. A lot of people frequent this cemetery. So the scene is there's a lot of people already in this area just to look at the tombs, just to look at the crypts. And so when the assistant comes out with the conjure, now we're going to see this later, but this isn't the first time a conjure item was found here. So when he comes out with the object of the conjure, he's holding it up, and there he's showing it to the people who are present. So a crowd begins to form, and everyone is, what is this that they found? Now this crowd, they're familiar with the idea of voodoo. They're familiar with the idea of hoodoo. They're familiar with the individuals that are buried here. They know all about people bringing offerings, leaving offerings on graves. They know all about people leaving conjures, people coming in trying to steal bones. They are familiar with this. It's not new to them. Remember, even with this being New Orleans, not just really hoodoo, but voodoo is real big in New Orleans. Right, that's one of the main places that you will find this particular spiritual system at. So make no mistake about it, they're understanding what they're looking at, and they're wrapping their minds around it. So a crowd is drawing. Now check this out. All kinds of suggestions were offered as to why the tongue was placed in the tomb. The woman who discovered it thought possibly that the one who put it there wanted to punish herself because she had a bad tongue. Others did not agree with her. They had ideas of their own. See? So they automatically know that, okay, this isn't random. You have a cow's tongue wrapped up in thread with needles, a lot of needles and pins stuck inside of it. Picture this in your mind. So they know that this item is being used for some type of spell, some type of conjure. It's being used in some type of magic ritual, so to speak. So now they are speculating on what conjure could this be a part of. So some of the people said that perhaps the woman who put it there is trying to punish herself because she has a bad mouth. Maybe someone their mouth always gets them into trouble. We know those kinds of people. They say things without thinking, and when they say things without thinking, they get themselves into bad positions and predicaments. And so whereas just to equate this with something that we may be familiar with, an individual may pray, right? They may pray for the Holy Spirit or whatever to give them the power to control their tongue, because within the tongue holds the power of life and death. You can build people up or tear them down with the tongue. The tongue is powerful. So whereas someone may pray that their tongue, that their mouth be placed under subjection because they use their tongue and their words for evil, an individual could possibly do a conjure to try to get their tongue under control, utilize that spiritual power another way. Right. So some people were suggesting that maybe they were doing it to punish themselves, and others suggested other things, which I would assume it was probably for something else. Like perhaps they wanted to someone else had maybe cussed them out or always said something bad to them. Maybe someone always talked down on them, always made them feel bad about themselves, always had something negative to say. So the individual who placed the cow tongue there, the cow tongue conjure in this particular tomb, maybe perhaps they wanted to silence them. They wanted to bring this other individual's tongue under subjection. So they created the conjure item, and then they placed it in the tomb so that they could utilize the spiritual power that is associated with cemeteries to cause an effect on this other individual. Now, however, without knowing the person who put it there, we will never know 100%, but these are just some of the ideas of what an individual might place a conjure item in a graveyard like this for. Check this out. A conservative estimate of one who saw the tongue when it was removed from the tomb last Sunday afternoon by the assistant sexton furnishes the intelligence that fully 3 or 4 spools of thread had been wrapped around the poor dead cold tongue. And as for the pins and needles, those who saw the object said there were at least 5 or 6 packs of steel in what at one time formed part of the makeup of some big steer or cow. So an individual, this thing is totally wrapped in thread to where at first glance you won't even recognize that it's a cow's tongue. So whatever they're doing, they are trying to completely and utterly bind the tongue of someone, either themselves or someone else. I propose someone else. And then they even stuck it with pins and needles. So many pins and needles we're going to see here shortly that an individual could not see certain parts of the tongue. But look, check this out. They say the thread was wrapped around the tongue so closely that it was next to impossible to even get the slightest glimpse of it. All that could be seen of the tongue was that portion of the base which was allowed to remain open and plain to the eye. It could be seen that the tongue had lain in the tomb but a short while. Decay had not yet set in. So when they found this particular tongue, when they found this particular conjure item, it had not been there for too long. Hold on. Look, they say the pins and needles were stuck in the tongue in a manner that could not but attract attention. That is, if one could possibly take an artistic view of the jaw. A peculiar feature is the manner in which the needles and pins were stuck in the edge of the tongue. They were placed here so closely that no room whatever was left for anyone to stick in an additional one. That must be one of the requirements to work the conjure or hoodoo game properly. And the one who fixed this tongue up certainly knew her business and showed that she had been at the game before. So the individuals who are talking about this, they're familiar with conjure, they're familiar with voodoo, and they're saying that how this particular tongue was fixed up, they can tell that this individual knew what they were doing. This wasn't the first time that they had created an item like this. Now, this item is even similar to what we know as voodoo dolls, where an individual will make a doll, which is a representation of an individual, and they can bind it up in such a way and stick pins and needles into it in order to bring harm to someone else, which is why I'm thinking that this cow's tongue was similar to a voodoo doll, meaning that the voodoo or the hoodoo or the conjure was meant for someone else. And I believe that it was a tongue because they were trying to bind up the tongue of a specific individual. The tongue was taken over to the office of the sexton and there cut open in the hope of finding some precious liqueur or some valuables. For generally, in the case of a hoodoo, the one working the game allows money to play some part. No money was found in it. Now, why would money be found inside? Why would they think that money would be found inside of the tongue? Or why would they think that, or why would they claim that often money is found inside of the hoodoo item? Otto says, Brother Daniels, shout out to you, family. Shout out to you, family. Thanks for tapping in. Thanks for tapping in. Salute. Well, that's because, for one, certain types of money, right, based on the material that it was, you'll see dimes. Dimes were used a lot in hoodoo. And this wasn't necessarily because of the value of a dime. It was more so linked to the silver. It was the silver. It was it's certain elements in the earth that our ancestors believed could hold, contain, transfer, manipulate certain powers and certain energies. So sometimes you would see money in the form of dimes or a copper penny. used in a certain type of hoodoo or something because they wanted to incorporate that particular metal. Now, a lot of times as well, money was placed inside of the actual conjure. Like they thought it was money inside of this tongue because sometimes these conjure items have money inside of them, but that money is also like an offering because a lot of times they left this as cemeteries. That's what I'm highlighting right now. So the money would be the offering to the ancestors. Now, you may be thinking, what would an ancestor want with money, or what would they need with money in the ancestral realm? Well, technically nothing. Just like if you leave out a plate of food, someone in the spirit realm can't physically eat your apple. So why would they leave out apples? Or if you pour out libations, or if you pour out a little liquor, or if you pour out some kind of a drink for someone who has passed on, they can't drink that physical item. So what is the purpose of it? Well, the purpose of it is the idea that everything in this physical has a spiritual counterpart. It's a duality to life. There's an understanding, just like you have life, you have death. You have the physical realm, you have the spiritual realm. Everything that's alive has an equal opposite counterpart in the spiritual realm. So if an individual leaves out food for an ancestor, it's not necessarily the physical food that they are offering to the ancestor. It's the spiritual essence of that food that they are leaving for the ancestor. Everything has that essence, or everything has some type of spirit or energy inside of it, which gives it the ability to be animated and be alive. The rocks, the plants, the trees, the oceans, the animals, the human being, the stars, the planets, the asteroid, everything has this energy. Everything has some type of life source. You may not recognize it as life, but this is how our ancestors viewed it. So even with the money, the physical money isn't actually the offering itself. It's the quote unquote energy, spiritual energy that could be associated with the money that is the actual offering. So the money would be placed inside of the hoodoo as the offering to the ancestors who you are hoping will work on your behalf in the ancestral realm. A lot of times it wasn't going directly to God or directly to the creator of the universe to work on your behalf. Our ancestors believed that the deceased ancestors who were in that spiritual realm where the creator of the universe resides, they have the ability to do work on our behalf in this physical realm. So they beseech their ancestors in the spiritual realm to do things of a spiritual nature for them. That's why the money was often found. They go on to say, quite a bit of excitement prevailed while the assistant was cutting the tongue open. The knife he used was borrowed from one of the girls mentioned before. The assistant merely requested the use of the knife without saying to what purpose he was going to put it. She let him have it. Imagine the poor girl's horror when she saw him cut the tongue with its keen edge. And to think, that was one of the best table knives we had at home, she remarked to her friend who stood close by. What will mother say? I guess we had better not tell. That will be the better plan. Something will have to be done to get rid of this knife. I don't want to use it anymore, nor do I care to see any of them at home make use of it after touching that nasty looking tongue. It frightens me to even give it a thought. So here we have a lighthearted conversation between two young girls who are out here witnessing this, who actually provided the knife for the individual working at the graveyard to cut the thread off of the tongue and to cut the cow's tongue open to see if there were any offerings of money or anything else embedded inside of it, which in this particular conjure, in this particular hoodoo, it wasn't. Now that's telling as well, because they're identifying a woman in one instance, and in this instance they're talking about the two girls as if these two girls are young, because they're saying woman about one individual that's there, and they continuously call them girls. So it's you. I'm wondering, What are these two girls doing doing with a kitchen knife walking through the cemetery? But you can never be too safe. I can only imagine they had it on them for some type of protection. Louisiana, New Orleans, it does have a reputation. I'm not mad at them for having a knife. Well, look, check this out. It goes on to say the girl would possibly have gone along in this manner for an indefinite time had not her friend told her to keep quiet and forget her troubles. So much something the tongue and those who figured in that part of its history recorded in the foregoing. So she was going on and on and on about them using her knife to cut open the tongue. Now, watch what they say. Check this out. It gets more interesting. There are those who may be impressed with the idea that since the tongue has been disturbed, that the hoodoo intended possibly for innocent persons will not work. Others who believe in the game, the game that's what they're using to refer to the hoodoo or the voodoo, just that the particular spiritual work. They're calling it the game. Others who believe in the game, though, hold that as soon as the tongue was placed in the tomb, the conjure began. If the hoodoo did work, it is a matter known only to the victim and the person working the game. So that's another bit of information that you guys can take away when understanding hoodoo and voodoo and conjuring and root work. In some instances, the particular item that you create to work the conjure or work the hoodoo. Some individuals believed if you removed it from the place that it was at, then the quote unquote spell was broken. The power of the hoodoo or the power of the conjure was broken. It was of no effect. But from the majority of stories that I've read, and from the majority of firsthand accounts from our ancestors that I've read, I don't believe that that's true. Yes, it's one thing to remove the hoodoo from the place that it's in, but a lot of times, in order to break the hoodoo, in order to successfully break the conjure, if it's real, it would be best to take that item to another conjurer, a real conjurer, not a fake one, somebody who's credible that can actually work this stuff. You take it to them, and then they will use that item to determine what type of hoodoo has been placed on you, and then they can work their craft of conjure and break the hoodoo. But it's still, they will have to give you certain steps that you have to take to break the quote unquote curse. So it's not simply just removing the hoodoo from its place. You have to remove the hoodoo from its place, take it to somebody competent, and then they will consult whatever spiritual entities that they have to consult, perform whatever rituals that they will have to perform, and then they will give you further instructions on how to actually break the hoodoo. Now look, it says that ends the story of the mysterious tongue, but that doesn't end the story of hoodoo conjure items found at this particular graveyard. Watch this. A brief conversation with the assistant sexton, the person who worked, the man that worked at the cemetery, the other afternoon revealed the fact that the tongue incident was not the first where an attempt was made to practice the so-called hoodoo. So, walk with me. There are multiple instances of conjure, hoodoo, voodoo items at this St. Louis cemetery. We're going somewhere with this. It is said that during the previous week, an old stuffed cat was found. So just a week prior to the tongue, they found an old stuffed cat. The animal had been dead but a short while and was stuffed before the skin had dried. This hoodoo was also found in an old tomb in the same cemetery. The skin was cut open, and among a lot of other stuff was found the sum of $2.50. Remember, they said they cut open the tongue, seeing if there was money inside. Why? Because they had found items like this before in the case of this stuffed cat with money in it. But there were other items stuffed inside of this cat as well. Now, these other items were, we don't know 100%, but they were most likely items from the individual that they were trying to hoodoo, or items from the individual that they were trying to conjure. It was probably some roots. It was probably some herbs. It was it was probably maybe a specific bone of the cat, like the leg bone, the paw bone, a piece of the skull. Certain bones, particular bones held meanings in certain hoodoo rituals. But this cat was killed and stuffed with various items. So this cat was basically not made into a living voodoo doll because it was dead, but it was a living animal that was transformed into something like a voodoo doll itself. It, instead of getting a napkin or a piece of cloth and creating a McKinsey bag, a conjure bag, or finding a bottle and putting these items inside of the bottle, they put these items inside of a dead cat. And this cat was most probably, it was a black cat, because black cats are a lot of times associated with hoodoo, voodoo, magic, rituals. You know, whenever they talk about a witch, witches always have a black cat. Black cats are full are replete through superstitious lore. If a black cat cross your path, it's going to be bad luck, you know, etc., 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 etc. So this was quite possibly a black cat. But we also see here a direct a direct uh incident where money was found inside of the conjure. Look, they say another instance where someone, in an attempt to get even with the other fellow, resorted to hoodoo practice. A photograph of a handsome young white man was thrown in one of the tombs to be left there for all time. That was the original intention, presumably, but again, the employees of the cemetery association intervened and the hoodoo was broken. This picture was found some time ago. It was possibly placed in the tomb by some young girl who had fallen out with her sweetheart, and believing Conjure would help to recapture him, placed this photo among the dead. And still, another attempt was made recently to work a hoodoo on somebody. So we see in this one cemetery, we see the tongue being used in a hoodoo. We see a cat being used in a hoodoo, and we see a picture that was possibly used in some type of a love spell being used as a hoodoo. So this cemetery has a lot of supernatural activity associated with it. And so let's look at another hoodoo that was utilized in the same location. They say in this instance, two little dolls were used. Now we're looking at some actual what we would call voodoo dolls. One was supposed to represent the form of a man, and the other was supposedly of a woman. Both objects were placed in one bottle that contained some chemical preparation or other. The bottle was found in an old tomb by one of the employees. At a glance, he knew what it was. The liquid was allowed to run out of the bottle, and then both dolls were taken out. On the clothes of the doll, supposed to be a man, was found the name of some male person living in this city. And on the skirt of the supposed woman was also found a name. The names were those of a man and woman who are quite well known in the city. So here we have, again, in this same cemetery, we have another type of hoodoo that was found. Two voodoo dolls. Now, these two voodoo dolls was a man and one was a woman. And the individual who worked this particular conjure, they created some type of elixir, some type of potion. They mixed it into a bottle, and they put the female doll and the male doll inside of the bottle. But to be specific, right? But to be specific, they wrote the name of the man that they wanted to conjure on the doll, and they wrote the name of the female that they wanted to conjure on the doll. And the individual who's writing this and the individual who worked at the city, they say that these people are well known. So had they revealed the names, It would be somebody that everybody knows in the city. Probably some prominent politicians, or maybe it was some cops or something like that. But apparently it was somebody who was well known in the city, and they didn't want to reveal they didn't want to reveal their names. Perhaps it was part of some type of investigation going on. It may sound weird to us today to hear about an investigation being made into something like this, because in today's world, a lot of this is just considered superstitious, and it may just be brushed off and not really looked into. But especially back in those days, especially like 1905, these things, and I can show you court cases and everything, but people were actually taken to court for being accused of conjuring people, right? And it was actually, people have been placed in jail for conjuring people and questioned by the police because they have been accused of conjuring people. There are plenty articles that I have about this, and I'm not talking about articles where modern day historians are talking about it. I'm saying the actual articles in the newspaper that is reporting on the story at the time, where individual cops had to go see about a conjure man or a conjure woman because they were accused of conjuring someone. And even people being taken to court for the same thing. So perhaps they didn't want to say the name of the man and woman because they were prominent, probably had a lot of money, and perhaps this thing was being investigated. But look, they say both dolls are still in the office of the sexton of the cemetery. The liquid has since dried out of the clothing for reasons better known in secret. The name of the man and woman will not appear in print. So there you have it. They're saying for reasons better known in secret. They're not going to tell you the name of the particular man and woman. Now, look, there are numerous other instances where attempts have been made to hoodoo men and women of the city through the means of placing certain objects in old, broken down tombs. The practice is still common among the Negroes, particularly the older members of that race. The general run of the Negroes here believe in the hoodoo game, and through fear more than anything else, they generally work their powers on their intended victims. There are 1,001 ways in which the Negroes, and a few whites for that matter, though it only prevails among the ignorant classes, work the conjure game. And much has already been said of the practice. The cemetery racket, though, appears to be an entirely new one, and for that reason, some of the facts are given in the above. It will no doubt be years and years before the hoodoo belief has been driven out of the minds of the Negroes. It appears they will believe in it for all eternity. So they're saying that they have numerous instances of hoodoos and hoodoo items, conjure items being placed inside of these broken down tombs. And just broken down tombs because of, over time everything breaks down. Now, why would they choose the St. Louis cemetery? Now, one reason, which I already showed you, it alludes to ancestor worship, ancestor veneration, and there were several prominent people buried there. And also, even if there was not prominent people buried there, the idea of cemetery dirt itself has always been important to hoodoo and conjure. But also in this particular cemetery, there is someone buried there who I believe is a big reason. Why so many items were left in this particular cemetery in New Orleans. Watch this. Check this out. Now, our ancestors always have used cemetery dirt, and the cemetery has always been of importance. But when we're talking about that particular cemetery itself, leaving items at that particular cemetery, Look what the article says. The cemetery racket, though, appears to be an entirely new one. And for that reason, some of the facts are given in the above. So in 1905, they're saying that this cemetery thing seems to be a new one. New one. And they have all of these instances that you got the cat, you got the tongue, you got the dolls, right? You got the picture of the white guy with like a love spell. You got all of this stuff centered around this particular cemetery. Now, again, it's a lot of famous people buried there, but also buried in that particular cemetery, most likely St. Louis Cemetery #1, you have the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, Maria Laveau, buried there. And she passed away in 1881, right? So that's around what, 24 years before that article was published. So what are the chances that after her death and after her burial in this cemetery, this whole quote unquote cemetery game gets on and popping to such a degree? There are so many stories that one can tell about conjure items being left there. Now, who is Maria Laveau, and why are they calling her the Voodoo Queen? Now, this lady, she's a very, very interesting character. And I'm going to tell you, she's probably the most famous voodoo woman, voodoo queen in all of American history. Okay, not just in New Orleans where she was at. Her name ring bells, even if you don't know her story, even if you don't know the details of her story. Like me, I never really knew the details of her story, but I have heard the name before. And a lot of times, even if you hear like commentary about, you know, the Voodoo Queen in New Orleans, etc., they're talking about her, whether you know they're talking about her or not. And she's like the original Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, to the point to where she has so much power, so much pull, that high-ranking statesmen from around the country would come to consult her for advice. She has so much rank and so much pull, they allowed her to go into the prison systems to the people on death row. She would go into the prison systems to consult the inmates on death row to, you know, to talk to them before they actually went to be hung, went to be killed, went to go take their last breath, right? She had money, she had property, she had prestige. You know, she had power because so many people came to her for advice and so many people came by her home to talk to her. She knew a lot of information is power. She knew a lot of information, right? She knew a lot of secrets. And look, check this out. The Voodoo Queen Maria Laveau, she was born in 1801. She passed away in 1808. I mean in 1881. So what's the first thing that stands out to you about those dates? The Civil War wasn't until the 1860, 1861, right? 1862, 1863, 1864. So she was alive while our ancestors were enslaved. And get this, individual slave owners in that area, when they had particular slaves who they just couldn't get to, well, this is what's said about her, that they couldn't get to I don't want to say mine, but I guess that's just the best way to say it, that they were just, you know, unruly. They would often take them, these enslaved ancestors, to her to have her talk to them and counsel them. And while she wasn't just a advocate for slavery or promoting that everybody be enslaved, that's just what it was when she was alive, she would often try to convince them to take a better route to endure some of the things that they had to endure that wouldn't lead to them being murdered or beat or whipped until they were bled or sold off to a more heinous plantation. So this woman, I mean, was powerful in New Orleans. And not only that, she was powerful in New Orleans as the voodoo queen, as in she actually was somebody who was confirmed by those who lived with her at her time to actually be a legitimate practitioner of voodoo, who actually demonstrated this particular spiritual power. Okay, that's one thing you have to understand about her as well. Her abilities were confirmed, and even her abilities to tell someone what was going to happen in the future was confirmed. What she said would happen happened when she said it. Individuals that did get on her bad side and that she would quote unquote place a curse on, they would suffer what she said that they were going to suffer. So the individuals around her, her contemporaries living at her time, seen this about her, and they recognized it. So is whether you choose to believe it or not, this is what's on the record. We got another comment in the chat. Ian Williams, hi, showing some love. Hope you're doing well today. Hey, I appreciate the love. Appreciate the love. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I hope you're doing good as well. I hope you're doing good as well, Ian Williams. Thanks for tapping in. So look what it says. Marie Kathleen Laveau was a Louisiana Creole practitioner of voodoo, herbalist, and midwife who was renowned in New Orleans. Her daughter, Marie Laveau II, also practiced root work, conjure, Native American, and African spiritualism, as well as Louisiana voodoo and traditional Roman Catholicism. An alternate spelling of her name, Laveau, is considered by historians to be from the original French spelling. Now, when you're talking about hoodoo and voodoo, now hoodoo and voodoo are very, very similar, but they are different, especially with respects to their particular origins. So voodoo isn't exactly hoodoo. Hoodoo isn't exactly voodoo, but a lot of times you will hear those names being used interchangeably. And a vast majority of the practice of them are the same, primarily because these traditions derived from the traditions of our ancestors on the continent of Africa. So the underlying the underlying foundations of voodoo and hoodoo are basically the same. So they look very, very, very similar, but there is a distinction between voodoo and hoodoo. Now, Maria Laveau, yes, she was the queen of voodoo. She was the voodoo queen, but she was also a Roman Catholic. She was also a Catholic, right? A practicing Catholic. When she would go to see the death row inmates before they were taken off to be hung, a lot of times a Catholic priest would accompany her, and she would give like advice and comforting words to the individual that was about to die. And the priest would perform the last rites. So she would be working hand in hand with the Catholic priest. And so just like hoodoo, hoodoo is a mixture of our African spirituality adapted to life on the plantation, mixed with like Christianity, mixed with Islam, mixed with Judaism to a degree. Voodoo is basically on the most basic level. It's like African spirituality, and a lot of it is mixed with Roman Catholicism, Catholic, the religion of the Catholics, Catholic Christianity, and the some of the African gods were identified with the saints of Catholicism. And remember, I told you in voodoo and hoodoo in African spirituality, we were big on ancestor worship or ancestor veneration. When you talk about Catholicism, they have what's known as saints, Catholic saints. Whenever you hear about a Catholic saint, that's a real person. That's not a deity. That's not an angel. That's a real flesh and blood person who lived and died. But they lived a life to such a degree that the Catholics honor them after their death. Now, there are other things that have to happen before someone is inducted into the sainthood, before they are named a saint. I believe one of the requirements is they have to be accredited with performing a miracle, an individual on earth after they have died, calling on that dead person's name and receiving a miracle. That is, I think it's two. They have to have like two miracles attributed to that dead Catholic, and then that's one of the requirements for the Roman Catholic Church as a whole to deem them a saint, someone who you can contact that's in the afterlife, that's in the spiritual realm, that can operate in the spiritual realm on your behalf in the physical realm. Remember, with Roman Catholics, the concept of saints, that I don't care what they tell you, that's ancestor worship all day long. All day long. Okay, so it was easy, so for someone who practiced hoodoo, voodoo, African spirituality to jive with that. Like, oh, okay, yeah, we believe the same thing too. We believe that our major figures who have died and went on into the spiritual realm, we believe that they can help us in the physical realm too. We believe that we can call out to them. Okay, so Maria Laveau, the voodoo queen, she was also a Roman Catholic. Check this out about her early life. Historical records state that Marie Catherine Laveau was born a free woman of color in New Orleans, French Quarter, Louisiana, on Thursday, September 10th, 1801. At the time of her birth, Louisiana was still administered by Spanish colonial officials, although by treaty the territory had been restored to the French First Republic a year prior. Her mother, Marguerite de Arcantel, was a free woman of color of African, European, and Native American ancestry. Because Laveau's mother was not married at the time of her birth, her father was not identified on her 1801 baptismal record. Baptized into the Catholic religion. A possible candidate is Charles Laveau, the son of Charles Laveau Trudeau, a white Louisiana Creole and politician. Other historians claim that Laveau's father was a free man of color named Charles Laveau. Much of the confusion is due to inconsistent spellings in surviving records. So we see that although she was born during the time of enslavement in America, she was born free. And her mother was also, she was able to be born free because her mother was free. And her mother was mixed with African, European, and Native American ancestry. And there appears to be a question of who her actual father was. Now, check this out. Maria Laveau, the voodoo queen, is buried in one of the crypts, supposedly, because they always act like nothing is concrete, in St. Louis Cemetery number 1. Remember, this is the cemetery that we've been reading about with all of those Conjure items in it in 1905. Look, Laveau's name and her history have been surrounded by legend and lore. She is generally believed to have been buried in plot 347, the Glapion family crypt in St. Louis Cemetery number 1, New Orleans, but this has been disputed by Robert Tallant, a journalist who used her as a character in historic novels. Tourists continue to visit, and some draw X marks in accordance with the decades old tradition that if people wanted Laveau to grant them a wish, they had to draw 3 X's on the tomb, turn around 3 times, knock on the tomb, yell out their wish, and if it was granted, come back, circle their X, and leave Laveau an offering. So you see, her tomb is covered with X's, and they are all in a pattern of 3 X's side by side. Now, this is from people making pilgrimages to her tomb. And you can see around her tomb, there are plants and there are several items left around the tomb. We can't make out exactly what all of the items are, but you can see that there are several items, and some may have been cleaned up over the years, but it's clear to see that dozens of people, dozens, maybe even hundreds, we don't know, I don't know, but dozens of people for sure, for a fact, from what we're looking at with our eyes, have not only made a pilgrimage to her tomb, but they have also made a pilgrimage to her tomb with the express intent of asking her in the spirit realm to grant them some kind of a wish, grant them a favor, do or perform some kind of work in the spirit realm for them. And they perform the ritual of writing the 3 X's on the tomb. Now, again, I propose that maybe not all of them had to do with her tomb, but isn't it interesting that in the same location where the Voodoo Queen is buried, where people are making pilgrimages to, leaving offerings, performing rituals on her tomb to get her to do things for them, they found the beef tongue wrapped up with needles and stuck with pins and wrapped up with thread and stuck with pins and needles. They found a cat stuffed with various conjure items and even money. They found a picture of a young white man that was potentially used in some type of a love spell. They found a bottle with a strange conjure liquid inside of it with 2 voodoo dolls in it with the names of 2 individuals written on it. Okay. And this was inside of this cemetery found as well. And they said that numerous other items were found, used for conjure, used for hoodoo, used for voodoo. Because yes, any graveyard dirt will do, any ancestor's grave will do, but to go to the grave of somebody like the Voodoo Queen, you would get the idea is that you would get a lot more power in the spiritual realm. We got another comment. Dora and Lekas, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Says, hey Matthew, I'm gonna have to catch the replay. I'm 69 minutes late. All right, yeah, no problem. Hey, thanks for tapping in when you did. Yeah, check out the replay when you can, family. Appreciate the love. Okay, now what I want to do for you guys next is you can see with your own 2 eyes individuals have been making pilgrimages to the tomb of the Voodoo Queen Maria Laveau. And we see that Wikipedia is talking about it. But what if we go a step further? And what if I show you that not only were people in New Orleans making pilgrimages to the grave of Maria Laveau, but what if I show you 2 northern women, possibly white women, most likely white women, coming from the north of the quote-unquote United States, making a pilgrimage to the grave of Maria Laveau? Because remember, she's not only famous in New Orleans, she's famous all over. And this picture right here of the Voodoo Queen Maria Laveau that I have on your screen, that picture right there is a painting that is supposedly of her. Okay, they auctioned several years back, they auctioned off this painting of Maria Laveau. I'm gonna ask you, do you have any idea how much this painting of the Voodoo Queen sold for? Does anybody have any idea? This painting of the Voodoo Queen Maria Laveau sold for close to $1 million, over $900,000. Did you hear what I said? Close to $1 million. That's crazy. That's crazy. And I'm finna show you just how far her influence reached. I'm going to show you guys this story of two individuals from the north, two women from the north, white women, who made a pilgrimage to the grave of the ancestor Maria Laveau. And it's funny that I'm calling her ancestor because she is, but I just recently found out that one of my friends on Facebook is actually related to her. That's wild. That's wild, man. I was talking about the ancestors on Facebook, and one of my Facebook friends, she commented on it, and she ended up telling me she like gave me a link to a video that she made, and on the video she was talking about meet my ancestor. And when I first seen her video, at that point I didn't really know who Maria Laveau was. Like I had heard the name, like it was like name recognition, like Maria Laveau, but I didn't know why that name meant anything to me. I didn't know why that name meant anything to me. But the more I studied, and then I was like, whoa, Maria Laveau is just a powerful individual. This individual that I know is related to her. So, shout out to her as well. Dora and Licous says, no idea the cost, but I read in a book that picture may not be her, but may be her daughter. Yeah, you know what? I was about to say that, but then it slipped my mind while I was talking. Yeah, so think about that, family. That is 100% right. This picture that sold for almost $1 million, it's not even 100% guaranteed that that's her. You dig that? So the possibility of having a picture of the Voodoo Queen was worth $1 million. Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of that. That make it even more powerful. Just to possibly get the portrait of the Voodoo Queen herself. They dropped almost a cool $1 million. You know what I mean? That is woo. That imagine that $1 million and you ain't even 100% sure. You just like, hey man, hey, to almost have the picture of the Voodoo Queen herself. And she had to be some kind of individual, man. And I salute to anybody that lives a life. And see, it wasn't so much that she lived a life like, oh, she did so much magic that she was remembered. No, she was actually a good woman, a kind-hearted woman. You're going to see it when I read the story. Her door was always open. You came for her to help. She helped you out. You was late on your bill. She helped you with your bill. You was about to lose your home. She helped you keep it. You was down on your luck. She helped you. If you needed some type of insight into how to move to secure yourself in some type of future event, she used her power and she used her talents to give you that. But they say that her door was always open. She was a servant to the people. She wasn't the Voodoo Queen because she just sat around, called the shots, and used everybody like a pawn. No, she was like a servant to the people, humble, and they loved her for that. They say she was always there until the time of her death. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what made her revered. Her heart, her willingness to help others. See, that's what we have to honor in people. We can't honor the despicable, the low down. We can't honor the hateful, the wicked, the evil. No, those aren't the kind of people that we hold up high, because the people that we hold up high, our children will imitate them, because they will think, oh, That's what makes that will make people love me. People will love me if I'm a scoundrel. No, you have to show them that no, people will love you if you're good, if you're kind, if you're caring, if you're doing something to contribute to humanity, if you're trying to leave this world in a better way than which you found it. That's how you get revered. That's how you get honored. That's how you become an honored ancestor. That's how you get worshiped. That's how your name gets remembered. I always tell you, may your name live on forever and may your memory never die. That don't just happen. You gotta earn it. You gotta earn it. Her tomb in Williams say, I heard they closed off her tombstone too. Man, that's wild. Probably so many people coming to it. I was reading somewhere, and you know what? You may be on to something because they said that people were like trying to chip off pieces of the stone of her damn, that's why, of her final resting place, just to get something that may possess some power attached to her. That's probably why it looks. It's probably why it looks in the state that it looks in. People probably been chipping away at it, peeling off at it, taking the plaster, probably trying to take something home. So they probably had to close it off. Dora Leakes says, I heard that also her grave is closed off due to but well, look, I didn't even read that comment, but she say that I heard that also her grave is closed off due to many people marking her grave. Yep, we see it. This the image. I've never been there, but this the image I found. Look at all them X's. They marked it up. Everybody trying to and that's a ritual. People have been going there performing rituals. But look at this pilgrimage. We're going to read about a pilgrimage that individuals from the north, they heard tell of this great woman in the south, and they wanted to come make a pilgrimage to their grave. This is one of them people that we're talking about. They probably marked on it. Huh? Look, so this from the New York Sun. Graveyard relics are not in so great demand in the north as they are down south, because us down in the south, Voodoo, Hoodoo, and over there in Haiti, we're the ones who started that, and it spread to the north during the quote unquote Great Migration, after the end of the Civil War, Reconstruction era, when individuals from the south was able to move all around. That's when a lot of this particular science spread to other places. But anyway, Southern people pick up the superstitions of the Negroes. Of course, they laugh at a good many of these weird notions, but a good deal in jest and a little bit in earnest, they observe the forms of these beliefs. Two northern women who were in New Orleans not long ago were a good deal amused by the information they picked up along this line. And, back in them times, they were just so racist. It's always going to be some dismissive overtones to how they talk about our ancestors and our beliefs. So just overlook that, like, oh, they were a little bit amused. We're just going to overlook that to pick out the key bits of historical information that we can find in these articles. They always frustrate me, but it is what it is. They own the printing presses. It all came about through their hunt for the cottage of Marie Laveau. At one time, Marie Laveau was the queen of the famous Voodoos who held their strange rites and dances in Congo Square. The Voodoo sect was broken up long ago and their dances forbidden. More recently, in order to banish completely all such memories and ideas from the minds of the darkies, the city authorities changed the name of the open place to Beauregard Square, but it didn't do much good. They can call it that in the directory and paint the name at the corners, but the Negroes call it Congo Square. Now, I don't think I put it in my presentation. I didn't. Y'all, hold on just a second. I want to show y'all something about Congo Square. What is Congo Square? What are they talking about? Congo Square, and let me go to the archives. I'm gonna pull this up while I talk. Congo Square is an area in New Orleans as well, and you can pretty much imagine why they would call it why they would even call it Congo Square. Congo Square is a direct reference to the Congo in Africa, obviously, right? Now we know that our ancestors were brought here from West and Central Africa, primarily. And so during the time of our enslavement, there in New Orleans, around this area where they're calling Congo Square, our ancestors, hold on, let me get this. Our ancestors, they had at one point a lot more freedom and a lot more opportunity to actually practice their African spirituality practices on these shores. They eventually did a crackdown, right? They eventually did a crackdown on this, and our ancestors were no longer able to practice how they once did or enjoy themselves how they once did in that particular area. But for the longest time, our ancestors utilized that space to on like it was Saturdays or Sundays when they weren't required or weren't forced to work as much. They were able to utilize this space that they call Congo Square to gather, sing songs, play traditional African music. They were able to dance. They were able to congregate, and even to some extent, they were able to trade with one another, sell different things that they had to sell, and make money. Our ancestors, in certain instances, they did have the ability to make money. Not all of them were allowed to make money, but some of them did. Look, let me pull this up real quick. Now, what they're calling Congo Square, you see like a little map of it to the right, and let me see all of my screen sharing. Yeah, you see a image of it to the right, and you also see a little picture of it. Now, look, this is the history of the area that they call in the Congo Square. The Congo Square is an open space now within Louis Armstrong Park, which is located in the Treme neighborhood of New Orleans, Louisiana, just across Rampart Street, north of the French Quarter. The square is famous for its influence on the history of African American music, especially jazz. Remember, in the beginning of this, when they were talking about the jazz musicians that were buried in the St. Louis Cemetery, I told you guys that jazz music was influenced by African music. Now look what they say. The square is famous for its influence on the history of African American music, especially jazz. This area that they're calling Congo Square had a major influence on the creation and the promulgation of what they're calling jazz. And this style of music is deeply embedded with the style of music that our ancestors had when they were in Africa. Look, in Louisiana's French and Spanish colonial era of the 18th century, enslaved Africans were commonly allowed Sundays off from their work. Although Code Noir, the Black Code, was implemented in 1724, giving enslaved Africans the day off on Sundays, there were no laws in place giving them the right to congregate. Despite constant threats to these congregations, they often gathered in remote and public places, such as along levees, in public squares, in backyards, and anywhere they could find. On Bayou Saint Street, at a clearing called La Place Congo, the various ethnic or cultural groups of colonial Louisiana traded and socialized. It was not until 1817 that the mayor of New Orleans issued a city ordinance that restricted any kind of gathering of enslaved Africans to the one location of Congo Square. So when they made it to where the enslaved Africans could not gather anywhere but the one location of Congo Square, they made that area of high importance. And our ancestors from various parts who were enslaved in various parts of the city, they would come to that area and congregate. And it was a major hub for our ancestors during this time. They were allowed to gather in the Place des Nègres, Place Publique, later Circus Square, or informally Place Congo, at the back of town, where the enslaved would set up a market, sing, dance, and play music. This singing, dancing, and playing started as a byproduct of the original market during the French reign. At the time, the enslaved could purchase their freedom and could freely buy and sell goods in the square in order to raise money to escape slavery. So they would go here, they would hang out. It was almost like a club scene at times. They'll be playing music, they'll be dancing, they'll be singing, they'll be trading, they'll be making money, they'll be spending money. Individuals would come there, whatever types of products that they could have at that time. They would be trying to make money off of those items, food items that they had, clothing items that they had, tools that they had, and they could be trying to trade and barter to raise money so that they could buy their own freedom. They was moving and shaking as much as an enslaved population could move and shake in those days. It was on and popping. Like even today, it's generally known that the descendants of the Negroes, the African Americans, the blacks, whatever they're calling us today, right? The descendants of the enslaved individuals, it's already known. It's like music is almost embedded in us. If you play a particular beat, if you play a particular music, we just start moving. We may not even all have rhythm, but the stereotype, because the majority of us do, the stereotype is that we all sing, we all dance, we just got that rhythm. You start playing some drums, if a beat drop, and it don't even matter what the words is, if the music is right, it's just like instinctively, we just start moving. Everybody at a certain age, they going to the clubs, they dancing, they singing, they bouncing, they moving, they shaking. It's just a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing that we brought all the way from Africa with us. We was like this in Africa. It was like this on the plantation. It was like this while we was enslaved, and we are still like this today. That's why even with some of the rap music, you have noticed it could be a song on and you don't even like what's being said, right? You don't even like what's being said. The words mean nothing. They have no value to you in your personal life. But if the beat is hot, if that music is hitting in a certain way, you be bouncing. As they'll make us dance to people talking about the killing our mama. I mean, some rap music is crazy, and we bob our heads to it. And then you catch yourself and you be like, damn, why am I even bobbing my head to this? Because it's just that music is in you. You hit them drums a certain way, that them ancestral genes start kicking in, and that music make you move. Anyway, the tradition continued after the city became a part of the United States with the Louisiana Purchase. As African music had been suppressed in the Protestant colonies and states, the weekly gatherings at Congo Square became a famous sight for visitors from elsewhere in the U.S. Protestant colonies, as opposed to these Catholic colonies. A Catholic and a Protestant, they're both Christians, but they're two different types of Christians. Remember that. In addition, because of the immigration of refugees, some bringing enslaved Africans from the Haitian Revolution, this is the Voodoo, New Orleans received thousands of additional Africans and Creoles in the early years of the 19th century. They reinforced African traditions in the city in music as in other areas. Many visitors were amazed at the African style dancing and music. Observers heard the beat of the bambulas and wail of the banzas and saw the multitude of African dances that had survived through the years. There were a variety of dances that could be seen in Congo Square, including the bambula, kalinda, Congo, Carabine, and Juba. Unfortunately, I don't know what those dances look like today. I didn't look it up. The rhythms played at Congo Square. Listen, listen. The rhythms played at Congo Square can still be heard today in New Orleans jazz funerals, second lines, and Mardi Gras Indians parades. In addition, the music played became the music of Louisiana voodoo rites, direct connection to our ancestors in Africa and individuals from the Haitian Revolution that came to New Orleans. Now, this is like a monument that is dedicated to Congo Square. We see in the middle we have a representation of a enslaved woman dancing. You see two of our ancestors, one to the right, he is playing a drum instrument. The individual to the left looks like he's playing another drum style instrument. There's a man to the behind and to the left of the woman in the front. He's playing like a banjo or a guitar style of instrument, and we can see the woman is holding the hand of the man standing in front with her. So they are clearly dancing together while others are standing around watching. And if you look to the right, or to the far right, you see a woman standing up with a young child in front of her, seeing that this was also a child-friendly place. And this is just a scene depicting the smiles on their faces, depicting the good time that our ancestors had in the midst of their enslavement in this Congo Square, right? So look, if you look, you see that little at the bottom in front of the monument, there's a plaque. We're going to read that plaque, and then we're going to get back to the article. Like it says, Congo Square. During the late 17th century and well into the 18th centuries, slaves gathered at Congo Square on Sundays and sang, danced, and drummed in authentic West African style. This rich legacy of African celebration is the foundation of New Orleans' unique musical traditions, including jazz. Sculptor Adelwell S. Adonal, I'll be butchering names, I'm sorry, dedicated April 2010. This sculpture was generously funded by the Edward Wisner donation. Now, see, a lot of times we know that during our the enslavement of our ancestors, there was a concerted effort to take from us our very culture. And in a lot of instances, a lot of that was suppressed, and a lot of that information was lied about. It was changed. History was rewritten, and a lot of things were taken from us. And so, what you'll notice is a lot of the culture that we brought from Africa with us, and a lot of the culture that we created on these slave plantations, it still exists today, but it exists in a different form and under a different name. And we may not know what we're looking at. Like, we can look into the past and we can see some of our ancestors, and on paper we may see that, oh, they're Catholics, and think that, oh, the religions of our ancestors from Africa was done away with. And it's like, no, although they're calling themselves Catholics, they were practicing voodoo. Okay, even though they called themselves Christians, they were practicing hoodoo. Even though they called themselves Islamic, they were practicing hoodoo, African spirituality. It's under a different name. Oh, they call it jazz. And yes, jazz is its own genre, right? It's its own thing. But embedded within jazz, right? Embedded within jazz is musical traditions that link all the way back to West Africa. Okay, so it's still there in an evolved state and under different names. And it is only through research, historical research, will we understand what it is we're looking at in modern times that connect us to what our ancestors were saying and doing in the past. Things that we're still doing right now today. That's why one thing I like to do in these videos, I'm always telling you guys, I'm trying to let the ancestors speak, and I try to bring you documentation from the past so you can see it, and hopefully you'll see the pattern yourself, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I see that today. Oh, that's what they were doing back then. Oh, that's our culture. That's why we do this today. Oh, that's how our culture was manipulated. Oh, that's how our culture was changed. Oh, that's how our culture was renamed or suppressed. Oh, I get it. And you will at least know historically what our ancestors looked like. So again, we have these pilgrims from the north, these two white ladies making a pilgrim to our ancestors' grave. They're making a pilgrim to our ancestors' grave in New Orleans, just like we may go to Mount Rushmore or go to Mount Vernon to the home of George Washington, the first president. Well, on the flip side, they make pilgrimages as well. We got another comment. Hello, I saw my 7th great grandma name, so I had to come in. Good evening, brother. My family has been Catholic and Muslim for hundreds of years, but okay. Look, I just mentioned you earlier. Okay, anybody that's been here, remember I told you guys that I had a friend on Facebook who's related to Marie Laveau? That's the individual that I was talking about. And when she first posted the video, Meet My Ancestors, I didn't really, the name recognition was there, but it wasn't until I really started digging into this story right here that I really made the connection. I was like, whoa, hold on, Marie Laveau, that's the voodoo queen of New Orleans. Oh, I know somebody that's related to her. Hey, so shout out to you. Thanks for tapping in. I did mention you earlier. I say, man, I got I'm a friend with somebody on Facebook that's related to our this powerful ancestor, right? But look, so these people are making a pilgrimage to her grave like the other individuals who put the X's on the tomb. Check this out. It all came about through their hunt for the cottage of, oh, well, I read that. Let me see. They can call it that in the directory and paint the name at the corners, but the Negroes call it Congo Square. The two northern women, guidebook in hand, were wandering over the French quarters, locating various points of interest where they arrived at St. Anne Street. The guidebook informed them that a certain low-roofed cottage in a certain block was once the home of Marie Laveau. As a matter of fact, 5 out of 6 cottages on the block were extremely low of roof, and the two explorers finally appealed to a great darky woman who was majestically approaching with a basket of clean clothes on her head. Can you tell me which was Marie Laveau's cottage? They asked. Now, this interesting as well, a jewel that they dropped. This pamphlet that they have, this guidebook that they have, specifically mentions Marie Laveau. This is how powerful she was. This is how well known she was, right? And they're asking about it because they want to make a pilgrimage to this grave like countless did before them. They say Marie, her name turned out to be Marie oh man, I think all right, now I cut that part out. So basically, they asked this woman to show them where the tomb of Marie Laveau is. And so after some back and forth, they talked for a while. She asked them why they want to know, blah, 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 where they're from. She actually decides to take them to actually see this location. So they say, Marie took her two travelers around to one of the best tombs and there triumphantly pointed out the inscription. And was she really the voodoo queen? Asked one of the visitors. Marie looked cautiously over her shoulder and glanced around the corner of the tomb. You never knows who may be listening to you in a cemetery, she said in a hushed voice. Miss Laveau, she was a great woman. She knowed what was going to happen long before it ever come to pass. It must have been the Lord what told her, I reckon. It sure wasn't any bad spirit, because she was a good woman. She was an engine, same as I told you. And when I was a little gal, I used to have to step over the engines in her backyard at night. They were so thick. Yes'm, they lived over across the lake then, and when they come in town, she used to let them come and sleep in her yard. Now remember, she was free, her mother was free, and they say that her mother was African, European, and Indian. So she was mixed. Now I want to point something out that's going to become more apparent in a second. You see how the article says these visitors from the north, they try to outright ask, okay, was she really the voodoo queen? And so the African American woman who they're talking to, when they say that, she kind of like look around and see who's listening. Then she goes to respond and answer, but she never gives them a clear yes or no. She never gives them a clear yes or no, indicating, at least to me, like, hey, look, if you want to come down here, I can show you what it said. I can tell you a few things, but I don't even really know why you're asking this. She don't really know if they are friend or foe. And some of these things, some of this information, it has to be passed down from mouth to ear. It's not everybody business. Everybody don't need to know the ins and outs of how a particular organization is ran. Because sometimes they're just trying to infiltrate an organization, or they're just trying to infiltrate a system to subvert it, to do something wicked, do something evil, do something cruel, to take it down. And what's more interesting, when I be reading through some of the other articles, about our ancestors that practice hoodoo, I noticed something very peculiar, or not very peculiar, but interesting. Whenever it was the real deal conjurers, the real deal hoodoo practitioners, like anybody can say that they can do it. Anybody can say that they have the power, right? They have this connection to the spirit realm, but there are certain ones who are, we all know, they are more spiritually connected than others. And when I read the stories about the individuals who tried and true proven to really have this power, this spiritual connection, they never just dealt with any old body off the streets. It was always like a referral type game. And whenever somebody would go to their house and knock on the door, the first thing they say is, who sent you? Who told you to come to my house? Right? And you would have to say somebody that they knew. You have to be sent there by somebody that they know. It wasn't, it was almost like an invite only. And I respect that. You know, I respect that, because you can't trust just everybody. Lauren Mathis says, the grave that the public know as my grandmother Marie, she's not there anymore. We moved her because people kept trying to break in her tomb and steal her bones. We were just talking about that early too. People marking up the grave, and somebody was saying that the tomb was possibly blocked off and sealed. Now, it's interesting that you say that about stealing the bones, because as I go through this article right here, we're going to look at some, not her, but we're going to definitely look at some attestations to bone theft. Remember, I don't know if y'all watched all of my videos, but in one video, I showed you guys where two young men, they had tried to get into a cemetery, and they got caught trying to dig up dig up one of the ancestors who was a known conjurer. And the reason why they were digging her up is because they said they wanted to get their hands on her bones, but they wanted to use it to make a pair of dice. It's no lie. They wanted to get it so they could make a pair of dice that they could win in the dice game with. But people would use these bones. They would use the graveyard dirt. They would try to use a part of the tomb in their particular conjures and in their rituals, because they understood that these things held power. And so individuals would try to acquire them, and they 100% tried to get their hands on bones. Now, sometimes it could be the bones of an animal. Sometimes it could be the bones. Sometimes it, like, depending on the ritual that they were trying to perform, it may be something specific. Like, okay, it has to be a child that died at this particular age, and it has to be the third finger bone on the left hand. Something very specific, right? Or it has to be the real bone of a black cat. You get what I'm saying? Or even when you think about rabbit's foot, in hoodoo, this rabbit's foot concept, that rabbit's foot is lucky because it's this part of a particular animal, parts of animals, herbs, plants, things like that could be used in the conjure. It could be used in the ritual. And a rabbit's foot that was taken from a rabbit that was killed in a cemetery on a full moon was especially powerful. And also the bones, certain bones of a human. Now, if that human was a known conjurer, then their graveyard dirt, a piece of their tombstone, a bone from their body was seen to hold more power than the average bone. 100%. Sandra Askew says, okay. I see this somebody that's going on in the chat. All right, hotel. So she deflects from the direct question, and she just tries to tell that okay, I don't know what you're thinking, but Marie Laveau, she wasn't doing nothing with no bad spirits. She was working directly with the Lord. She was a good woman, and she helped anybody. She had a big heart. I was explaining that earlier. Look, they say she didn't only tell the colored people what to do and how to get luck, my Lord, but I've seen fine ladies come in carriages from the other side of Canal Street. She made lots of money, she did, but she was good. For instance, white people, they used to bring their slaves to her to be trained. When a nigger wouldn't work and was bad, they bring him off down to Miss Laveau. Just whoop him good, they say to her. I gives you my free permission, they say. But Lord, she never whipped none of them. No, sir. She was just good to them and told them how much better off they'd be if they didn't get into trouble. And sure enough, they was as different as if they just waked up. She was godmother for everything and everybody. She was godmother for the old jail, and when anybody was going to be hung, 'twas Miss Laveau would stay with them. And she always have a shroud made from too, and she paid for them to get buried. See, the mind game that they try to play on us, especially with the movies and stuff, they try to make it seem like our ancestors and our ancestral practices is evil and wicked, and it's some kind of devil worship. That's the mind game. That's the mind game. But no, it was nothing like that. Our ancestral practices, we were good-hearted people. We were loving, we kind, you know what I'm saying, helpful, generous, and we try to better humanity and leave the world in a better place than which you found it in. One of the core concepts that I'll be talking about with this hoodoo thing is you have to understand that everything is like connected. everything has life in it. Everything is connected to the creator. Everything is sacred in its own particular right. And the human being is not the Lord over creation. The human being is a part of the creation. Just like the trees, the animals, the water, we're a part of this thing. That's why our body is made up of the same stuff that's in the universe. We're not made up of no elements that can't be found anywhere else. We drink the water that's available on earth. That water that's available on earth perfectly breaks down in our body to give us the energy and the sustenance that we need. We eat animals, we eat plants, and somehow we're able to convert that into the energy that we need to survive, right? And so it's like a interconnectedness of the human being and the planet and the animals and the plant. It's an interconnectedness, and all of this energy. An animal can eat the plants. The plants can thrive off of the minerals that's in the earth. Animals' defecation can be used as fertilizer to help more things grow. We can eat the animal and get the energy. We can eat the plant and get the energy, and this energy can be transferred through different types of beings, and we all need each other to survive. Even the oxygen that we breathe, they tell you in school that the oxygen that we breathe, it comes from these trees that's all around us. So we're giving our oxygen, we're giving our water, we're giving our sustenance, our vitamins, our minerals, the sunlight. You can't live with no sunlight. You can't live without the sun. You can't live without the oceans and the rivers and the lakes. You can't live without the plants and you can't live without this stuff. That's why you think you can't just get on a spaceship and fly your butt to Mars if you want and just get off that spaceship, no spacesuit, no nothing, see how long you last. Without this earth right here, you intimately connected to this earth. It just is what it is. Okay. And so with that understanding, an individual is not so much as the individual is worshiping the sun, the river, and the tree as the creator God. Is no, you're understanding that is an aspect of creation that is intimately connected into my survival. Why would I do anything that destroys the earth if I need the earth to survive? Why would I destroy the quote unquote ozone layer if I need that to protect me? Why would I destroy the water if I need to drink the water to live? Why would I cut down all the damn trees if I need them? Why would I pollute the ground if I need it? You understand what I'm saying? So it's that spiritual understanding. It's that understanding that you need the earth to survive that made our ancestors live in such a way to not destroy the very thing that's keeping you alive. Now, an individual that thinks like that, how can an individual that thinks like that be evil, wicked, devil worshiper, demon? It don't make sense. It don't make sense. It don't make sense. But if you say, oh, I see the divinity in the water, oh, you're a devil worshiper, you going to hell. Oh, I see the divinity in the tree. Oh, damn it, you good. God damn it, it's a special place in hell for you. Oh, I see the divinity in the sun. Ooh, it's a super, it's a super special place in hell for you if you see the divinity in the sun. Okay, brother, what the hell you see the divinity in? Well, first of all, everything is here for me. I rule everything on the planet. I don't give a damn if I kill every sheep. I don't give a damn if I kill every bison. I don't give a shit if I pollute every body of water on the planet. I don't care how much pollution I put in the sky. I don't care about none of that, because the only thing I worship is something that's unseen, something that it can't even touch you. You never seen it. You can't touch it. You don't know where it's at. You don't know how it thinks. So the only thing you answer to is something that technically only exists in your mind. You don't answer the nature at all. But I'm the evil one. I'm wicked. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. You will destroy the planet, but I won't. You will destroy the oceans and the trees and the plants, but I won't. And I'm going to hell. Miss me with that. Miss me with that, man. Miss me with that. And so a lot of this stuff we've just been distorted about what's really important. Now look, check this out. The sun was beating down pretty hot about this time, so the Northerners suggested that they go back to the little lodge at the entrance and finish their talk there. As they turned to go, Marie brushed some whitewash from their shoulders. "You've been leaning against the tomb," she remarked cheerfully. "Never mind. Anything you get in a cemetery will bring you luck. Show. Ain't that so, Henry?" To the gatekeeper who came to the door when they appeared. So at this time, Henry is the gatekeeper. He's the individual that's working at the cemetery. But you see a continuance of the thought that things in the cemetery can bring you good luck, or it holds some type of power that can help you. Again, that translates directly to the ancestor veneration or the ancestor worship, right? It's the same. That's what it's relating to, because everything has a spirit in it. So these things that are connected to the venerated ancestors that have that spirit in it, then you can utilize those items and the spirit connected to those items to do what? Improve your life. This is the thought process. The two visitors sat down in the shade while Marie and Henry stood and talked. "Well, I know people what seems to think so," said Henry. "The other day," now watch this. "The other day, there was two ladies passed in through the gate here, and I, looking through my window, observed that they wasn't carrying anything in the arms. About a short quarter of an hour later, I observed them approaching along that aisle, and one of them was carrying a paper bag." So the guy that work at the cemetery says he see two ladies. They come into the cemetery. They not holding nothing. When they leaving, they carrying a paper bag. What's the logical next question? The logical next question: what's in the bag? Right? Now this finna tie into what y'all been saying in the chat. Yes, I stepped to the door here, and as they passed, I just leaned over and looked in that bag. And as I expected, I seen a skull there. So these two women, check this out. So these two women walked into the cemetery. Apparently, they went into somebody's tomb. Now, they may have dug somebody up, but remember, we're talking about this St. Louis tomb. And a lot of these are like above ground structures. Okay, a lot of these are above ground structures. Some of them are below ground, of course. But whatever they did, these two women, they went in there and they got a skull, a human skull, put it in a paper bag, and they trying to leave with it. "Look, excuse me, ladies," I says, "but you can't take that skull out of here." "Oh, but we need it," says one of them. Now, why would they need a human skull? You already know the answer, because this is what we've been talking about. They needed that skull because that was a ritual. They were going to use it as a ritualistic item. I don't know the specifics. I don't know if they were going to go home and make some type of shrine with it. I don't know if they were going to use it in some ritual to bring them luck or to bring somebody harm. I don't know if they were going to use. They may have been using it to try to break a conjure or a hex or a hoodoo that was placed upon them. It's no way that it's a multiplicity of reasons why they could have been wanting to get it and what they were going to use it for. But the fact that they were going there to get a human skull is undisputed. They were walking out of there with a skull. So the same way that y'all just seen somebody in the chat say that they had to move the body of Marie Laveau because people were trying to steal her bones. They would take anybody's bones. And if they could get the bones of somebody super famous, right, they would definitely get those bones too. Now, I want y'all to think about something. Never think for a second, even though they may mock our ancestral practices, behind closed doors, they utilize our ancestral practices. I'm going to say it again. Openly, they may mock it, and they may want you not to practice it because the power that's in it, but they will practice it behind closed doors. They just don't want you to do it. Remember, even with the Catholics, they're going to tell you that ancestor worship is evil, but then they're going to give you a saint, right? They're going to give you, oh, Mother Teresa, she's been sainted, Mother Teresa. And you can literally, according to them, pray to a saint and have that saint in the spirit realm affect you in the physical earthly realm and do things for you, protect you on your travels, protect you while you're sick, protect you while you do this, and protect you while you do that. So wait a minute. So you mean to tell me the ancestors of the Catholic Church, the ancestors that the Catholic Church deems saints, they can help me in the spirit realm, but my own grandma and grandpa can't? Get out of here. Foolishness. Nonsense. Right? Nonsense. And they are going to protect the graves of their holy people. They're going to protect them. They're going to protect the graves of their holy people. They're going to keep them. They're not going to just, they're not just going to throw them bones away. They're not just going to, and they're going to pray in front of them tombs. They may not tell you. They're going to kneel down in front of them tombs. They're going to go to them tombs. They're going to build churches over them tombs. Oh, this church was built over the tomb of St. Peter. This church was built over the tomb of St. Paul. Oh, this church was built on the very spot where St. James jumped out of the cathedral and was thrown out of the cathedral and beheaded. They got all these holy sites, man. What the hell is making their sites holy? Because the people that they venerate did something on that site. But then they're going to tell you that the people that you venerate, that no site can be holy because of them. It's a mind game that they played with us. A mind game to make us look to them instead of looking to ourselves. You understand what I'm saying? So they went into this cemetery and they tried to get this score and they said they need it. Apparently they need it for the Conjure. Now check this out. Yes, I suppose you does need it, else you wouldn't be trying to carry it off. If you could have one, and a lot of times, and I do appreciate them for doing this, a lot of times in these articles and when I read the slave narratives, the quote unquote oral histories, they write it how our ancestors spoke. And so we know that our ancestors, they spoke in a lot of broken English. Hell, we speak in broken English today. They call it Ebonics. So basically what they're saying is, if you could have got one without my seeing you, you would have had been all right. So basically the graveyard keeper was like, man, yeah, I know you need the score because obviously you need it because you're trying to get it. But if you would have got it and I didn't see you, you'd have been all right. But he says, but since I seen you, I can't let it go. That's what I says to him. So he's like, but damn, I see you. Like, don't you like, y'all know that Cat William meme? Mohawk, don't you know that we can see you? Right? He's saying like, hey man, I see the skull in the paper bag. I can't just let you walk out. And so the ladies say, the visitors, they say, and did you let them have it? Like asking, did he let the ladies have the skull? He say, no, very solemnly, I couldn't. Why? I've been offered plenty of money for skulls and bones of various kinds. Some people, they want one bone and some they want another. Not long ago, there was a young man come here and he offered me $5 for the first joint of the third finger of the left hand of a little child, about 5 years of age. He was awful panic. He was awful particular. Yes, did you get him the bone? Oh no, miss, reproachfully. Now, whenever you see something like that, I can't be 100% sure, obviously, if they don't say, but chances are, when you see someone saying something that specific, saying that they need the first joint of the third finger of the left hand of a little child about 5 years of age, most likely that individual has already been hoodooed or voodooed, or someone has put some kind of conjure on him. And They're afraid of something bad happening to them, so they're trying to break the conjure. In hoodoo, in voodoo, whenever you have been conjured and something bad is going on in your life, and you go to the voodoo doctor or the hoodoo doctor to have them lift the quote unquote curse or lift the conjure, they will tell you specifically, okay, you have to do this or you need this to create the remedy. So when I see something specific like that, my mind is assuming he has been conjured and he's trying to break the conjure, and he's trying to acquire the items that he was told that he needs to acquire. In the chat, Lauren Mathis says your ancestors are the first people who you go to, and your spiritual guides that the is blocked by the heart high, that the most high given to you. Exactly. And I'm glad you brought a little more clarity to that. You see what I'm saying? Because that's how I see it as well too. Because a lot of times, especially like when you're looking back into history, if you notice, you can debate almost anything. And I love to debate, and I love to study religion, I love to study history, and I love to debate these things, right? And if you're honest, you know you can debate. Okay, did Moses even exist? Did Jesus even exist? Did Paul exist? Did Peter exist? Did Isaiah exist? Did Muhammad exist? Did Abraham exist? Okay. Did these so-called Neteru of Egypt, they say that the Neteru, Asar, Aset, Heru, they once roamed the land, they ruled Egypt as kings. Did these people actually exist that you're telling me that they existed? Now, you can debate that all day, but you want to know something? You know grandma, grandpa, great grandma, great granddad, you know that they existed. They not that far in the past. And a lot of times you know their names and you can figure out their names. And you have like a more direct connection to them. You know that they loved you. They loved you in life. You know their voice. If you see their face, you'll recognize them. See, they want you to believe that you can try to contact your grandmama and you may accidentally contact a demon. But what makes more sense? I'm trying to contact grandma. I know what grandma look like. I know what grandma sound like. More importantly, I know what it feel like to be in grandma's presence. Now you're trying to contact some Catholic saint who lived 1,000 years ago. You don't know what they look like. You don't know what they sounded like. You don't know anything about them other than somebody just wrote down their name in a book. Okay, now you're trying to contact them. Is it more likely that you can be tricked into talking to an evil spirit trying to contact somebody you don't know and that you don't even know if they really existed, or that you will be tricked into contacting a demon trying to contact grandma? Right? I guarantee a demon can pretend to be, listen to what I'm saying, man. A demon can pretend to be somebody that you don't know 1,000 times easier than an evil spirit can pretend to be your grandmother. You get what I'm telling you? You don't contact grandma and grandpa. You might open yourself up to evil spirits. Oh man, y'all, I don't want to contact grandma and grandpa. I might open myself up to evil spirits. Well, Mr. Priest, who should I contact? Okay, well, right here we have Saint Jerome, who lived in 200 CE, 1,800 years ago. And call on Saint Jerome. Like, oh, well, what did Saint Jerome look like? Well, we don't have no accurate depictions of Saint Jerome. Well, can you mimic his voice? What does Saint Jerome sound like? Well, we don't 100% know what Saint Jerome sounded like. What language did Saint Jerome speak? Well, most likely, depending on the area of the earth that he lived in, he most likely spoke Koine Greek. I don't speak Koine Greek. You understand what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying, fam? So how would I even know if I'm really talking to Jerome? Even if he real, how would I know, man? Come on, man. Like, come on, bro. You can fool me with Jerome. You can't fool me with grandma. That's how I see it. And you can say it however you want, but that's how my mind works. Right? But look, they say by this time, Marie was getting a little impatient because she was left out of the conversation, so she plunged in. Now we're back to the Lady Marie, who took the two Northerners to the tomb of Marie Laveau, and they're talking to the man that works at the graveyard. Now watch this. Now this what I want y'all to really pay attention to what's about to be said and understand the historical relevance. Oh, pshaw, she exclaimed. I reckon they must have been Baptists, them people. I ain't got no use for the Baptists. They make too much noise for to suit me. Yes'm, I's Catholic, of course, but I love to try all the religions what I could find. Methodist, probably Methodist, is what I likes. I've been baptized in the Baptist church. Yes'm. Now look at this. When they're talking about the woman coming to get the skull and the young man trying to pay $5 for the finger bone of a child, the first thing this woman says is, oh man, they must have been Baptist people. Y'all do realize Baptist, that's a denomination of Christianity. Remember, individuals that practice voodoo, they will simultaneously a lot of times be Catholic as well. Individuals practicing hoodoo in the South on the plantation, simultaneously they will be calling themselves Christian. And that's why I tell people a lot of times the Christianity of our ancestors is not the Christianity that you're seeing today, right? This is not the Christianity that you're seeing today. Why would she assume that a Baptist Christian would be in the graveyard looking for skulls and looking for bones? Obviously, she's seen Baptist Christians doing this, right? And obviously, if Maria Laveau, the voodoo queen, is a Catholic as well, obviously a Catholic can be practicing voodoo at the same time. See, in African spirituality, they never really demonized other people's religions. It wasn't really a you going to hell if you don't think like me. So they were more accepting of other people's beliefs. It wasn't believe like me or you going to hell. That's not really the teachings. You understand what I'm saying? So you can see a mixing and a mingling of these different religions. And our ancestors were enslaved by these Europeans who practiced these things and by these Arabs who practiced these things. So a lot of these religions were intermingled with the religions and the spiritual systems that we already had. But look, clearly, it was an understanding that an individual could be a Baptist and be going to the graveyard to get bones, and an individual could be a Catholic and going to a graveyard to get bones. So just keep that in your mind. Our ancestors' Christianity and Catholicism was not so much as the Christianity and the Catholicism that we see today. They may not have said, they wasn't going to tell you that if you worship your ancestors, you're going to hell. They weren't saying that because they honored and revered and worshiped their ancestors. So our people who saying that today, that a lot of them, they've just lost their way to a degree. They have forgotten how their ancestors viewed religion and spirituality and viewed the world. Look, so they asked her, then why are you a Catholic if you was baptized as a Baptist? She say, oh, just because I done been raised a Catholic. Marie Laveau, she was a Catholic too. Yes, when she was a little girl, she went barefooted to church 9 days for a penance. Penance is a Catholic practice. She hadn't done anything bad, you know. She just went because she was that religious. Do you ever have any more dances like you used to have in Congo Square? Asked one of the visitors. We've already went over what Congo Square was. Marie and Henry exchanged a glance. Oh, colored people has mighty fine dances, said Marie, just like white folks' dances. So they say, but I don't mean that kind. I mean such as you used to have outdoors. I don't know. I guess not, said Marie indifferently. I never did dance myself anyway. My feet show never was matched for dancing. So then they asked remember, they deflected from the question, was Marie Laveau the queen of voodoos? And now they just deflected from the question if they still have dances like they used to have at Congo Square. What you're going to realize is that these practices still exist, but they are somewhat underground. Like they not just, it's not just publicly pronounced. They're not just, you're not just doing these things in the public, not just practicing these things in the public. But if you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, they can take you to somebody that knows somebody. You understand what I'm saying? And you can see the real deal for yourself. But a lot of this is like invite only type of vibe. It's invite only type of vibe. You're just not gonna turn on the news and see it. You know, it just is what it is. And so look, so they go back to the question that they diverted from earlier, and they just diverted from the question about the dances like they had in Congo Square. It's like, why would I even tell you that, lady from the north? But they say, was Marie Laveau the queen of the voodoos? Another glance between Marie and Henry. Now, whenever you talking to two people and you ask them a question, and before they answer, they look at each other, right? They look at each other. That's body language. They know something that they know you don't know, and they don't want you to know what they know. You get what I'm saying, y'all? You done been there. It could be you and somebody that you real cool with, somebody that you don't know. They just walk up, they start asking questions. You may be cordial, you may talk to them, but you're just not gonna give them too much information because you don't know what their intentions are. And then they may ask a question that's like, you know how we say, man, you sound like the police. You sound like the laws, man. Like, what do you mean? Hey, can I get 3 grams of drugs, please? Man, get the hell out of here with that nonsense. And so, they gave each other a look. These two northerners, they walking up like, oh yeah, can I get do you know where I can get a pound of the voodoo from? And Marie and Henry looking at each other like, what, a pound of the voodoo? Are you wired? Man, let me are you wearing a wire? Man, get out of here with that nonsense, man. I give you the stuff that they say in the brochure. I'm not finna give you all the serious teachers. So look, another glance between Marie and Henry. I don't know what you mean. Now listen, it's no way that they don't know what they mean by the queen of the voodoos. It's no way that they don't know. You understand what I'm saying? But they saying, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I don't know nothing about that. I plead the fifth, like the Young Thug trial. Oh, yes, you do. Tell. Hey, now you really sound like the law. Oh, yes, you do know what I'm talking about. Tell me about the voodoos. And so now they finna, shake the spot a little bit. I'll give you a little bit. Well, when you has bad luck, you say as how you've been hoodooed. Not hoodoos, protested the northerners, voodoos. It's all simultaneous, protested Henry. Show, asserted Marie. Now, again, there are certain differences between hoodoo and voodoo, but a lot is very, very similar. Okay, very, very similar. In the chat, your ancestors are, Lauren Mathis says, your ancestors are with you and communicate with you all the time and working on your behalf. Hotep, I agree. Energy and your ancestors never dies, they just evolve. Remember, Matthew, we talked about this. Facts, factuals. Lauren Mathis in the chat also says, the ones who practice hoodoo in my family call it spiritual work or voodoo, or a lot of times Baptist. Exactly. And see, that's one thing I keep trying to drop that jewel in the videos that I'm doing. I keep trying to drop that jewel. You have to realize, see, they'll want you to think that during our ancestors' enslavement, it was the only reason they got over is because of the Bible and Jesus and Christianity. They pushed that narrative. Oh, Harriet Tubman used the Bible. Nat Turner used the Bible. Denmark Vesey used the Bible. I've already did a video on this channel where I showed you the earliest revolts. Not only was it a Christian or a practicing Christian involved, it was also the voodoo, the hoodoo, the conjure doctor involved from the very beginning. Even with Denmark Vesey, you had Gullah Jack. Denmark Vesey is nothing without Gullah Jack. You got to know who Gullah Jack is. Yeah, he was a member of the M.E. Methodist Church, right? I mean, Methodist Episcopal Church, yes, but he was also a conjurer. You understand what I'm saying? In the New York Revolt of, I think it was 1712, you had a man called Peter the Doctor, a free Negro who was the leader of that particular revolt in New York. The New York Revolt of 1712. It was a conjurer. And whenever you had the revolts going on, they would go to the conjurer and they would put like, they would get like graveyard dirt. They would make their potions and their powders and they would put it on their bodies for protection, etc., etc. Right? So, we can't negate that. But let's continue. They say they wore an expression inscrutable and sphinx-like. So the northern women gave it up. Basically, like, listen, lady, you keep asking was she the queen of the voodoos. We not going into all the specifics because we don't know you. We don't know you. We're not going to give you all of the details. I respect that. When they also gave up a couple of quarters, Marie and Henry almost exploded with gratitude. But they had, even then, no confidence to make on the subject of voodoos. Now, yeah, we could talk about this stuff in a cursory way, but a lot of this science, you got to be initiated in to the craft to get the deeper understanding and the deeper knowledge. You got to be initiated in. It ain't, you know what I'm saying? You can't just wake up one day and be like, oh, you know what? I was called to lead the voodoo and the hoop. No. Family thing. You got to be invited in. You got to be initiated. You got to go through some type of rites, man. You got to, it's like, bro, you can't wake up one day and just say, oh, you know what? I want to be a doctor and perform heart surgery. It don't work like that. No, brother, no, you need to, you got stuff you got to do. You got to go through school. You got to get this degree. You got to get up under these other people that already know how to be a doctor. You got to learn this. You got to show that you learned what we trying to teach you. You can't just say you a lawyer and start practicing law. Where they do that at? You can't just wake up one day and say, oh, you know what? I'm a welder. Let me go weld this thing together that people's lives are dependent on. You ain't learned nothing. You ain't learned the trade. You ain't got the skills of the craft. No, man, you got to be initiated in some of this stuff. That's not just the Masons. We hear about the Masons and secret society, the Masons. They got that's not the Masons ain't the origins of secret societies and initiatory guilds and crafts and things of that nature. Our people have operated like that since time immemorial. Since before history was written down. That's why when the first history starts being written down, you see these things apparent. Even if you go back thousands of years in Egypt, when they started writing stuff down, these various crafts existed, meaning they existed before they wrote about it. So that's time immemorial. You see? And so that's why they're not answering some of these northern women questions, because it's like, you don't have a right to know. Yeah, I'll tell you this cursory information to get your attention, to get you interested and just change your perspective on stuff. But I mean, I can't really give it to you I can't really just give it to you like that. No, you got to earn some of the deeper knowledge and some of the deeper understanding. I can't just, the game is to be sold, not told. But this ain't sold, but this is earned. You understand what I'm saying? That's why they responded to this lady like that. And when you read the ancestors' literature, when you read our oral history, or AKA the slave narratives, and yes, our history goes back prior to slavery. I know it. I teach it. But I like to deal with that a lot because that is some of our undisputed ancestors, and we need to look at them. And we need to understand what they went through, how they saw the world, how they viewed the world, because that expressly defines where we're at in history right now today. And a lot of times when you read those slave narratives and when you read those oral histories, they all are the same. They come around, they're like, hey, where's the Conjure man? I heard there was a Conjure man around here. Where they live at? Oh, nah, I can't tell you where they live at. Who are you? What you want? Why are you here? You got to know somebody that knows somebody. Somebody got to already trust you. If you ain't earned nobody trust, you're not just going to get the information. Black Wolf says, what is strange when people hear this from time to time, they call those people crazy that practice hoodoo. Yeah, exactly. And you want to know what? This is what's wild about it. An individual that talks about root work, herbs, healing, and things like that, they crazy. But ask yourself. You ain't even gotta ask the person next to you. Ask yourself. If you go back 3,000 years into the past, what is medicine? What is medicine? What is the only thing available to you to heal yourself? Things that you get from the earth. Point blank, period. Things you dig up from the earth, things you get from plants, roots, herbs, trees, and animals. They make medicine by running experiments on animals, plants, roots, etc., etc. Now, if you go back thousands of years into the past, you don't have no damn lab. So yes, it is going to be a primitive form of our understanding of medicine. Now we have gone further. Technology has advanced, but what technology can you create without a physical mineral, right? That exists in nature. Without nature, you have nothing. You have no weapons. You have no cars. You have no bottles. You have no cups. You have no computer. You have no phone, right? Wars are fought over resources. Nobody goes to war over a cell phone. They go to war over the minerals that you dig out of the ground to make the cell phone work. They go to war over the material that they use to make the nuclear weapons. They go to war over the oil that you use to run your machines. They go to war over the material that you use to make the rubber for the tire. So the science is everything comes from the earth. Now, some things that you get from the earth, you may try to use it for a particular purpose and it might not work. Everything don't work. But you have to understand that your medicine comes from the earth so you can, okay, what'll happen if I put this herb with this plant, mix it together? Will that help my fever? Trial and error, experimentation. That's not crazy. That's not no damn demon worship. That's science. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, if I take this right here, or I sit back and I observe the natural world, you know what? Those antelope, they never eat that plant right there. I wonder why they don't eat that plant right there, right? And then you find something or somebody that's dumb enough to eat it, even though the antelope don't eat it, and then that person die. Now, you don't have a lab to test it, but common sense will tell you, oh, you know what? It's something about that. And so then an individual, if they so choose, they would try to use that to create a potion to hurt somebody. Oh, this right here can fuck somebody up. These are the underlying, like, logical concepts that lead to the practices that our ancestors utilized. You see? But you have to go through steps to advance the technology. You don't get to where you can go to the hospital, right? You don't get to where you can go to the hospital and get hooked up to a machine that can check your blood, check your temperature, check your heart rate, check your pulse. You get nothing inside of the hospital until you dig in the earth and you figure out what materials you can use to create the bed, create the needles, create the tubes, create the bags, create the screens, create the fucking computers. You understand what I'm saying? But everything comes from the ground. But when they look at our ancestors and they see our ancestors using plants, roots, herbs, animals, animal bones, animal blood, things like that, they're like, oh, that's just so foolish. You damn fool. If you never experimented with that stuff, you wouldn't have nothing, because everything comes from minerals and shit that grow in animals. Right now today, they literally take an animal, extract that animal's blood, right? Or extract glands from that animal, or extract some byproduct that the animal produces, and they use it in the medicine. And people will be like, "Oh wow, that's just you are the smartest being ever created on planet Earth." But then when you see your ancestors back when they didn't have laboratories, experimenting with a primitive thought process. Well, what we see to be, it ain't even fucking primitive. Now I'm speaking like the colonizer. But when you see them using that same thought process with the tools available to them to come up with ways to improve their lives, heal themselves, create technology, protect themselves, it's like, oh, that's just foolish. But you see a scientist in a lab, he pouring shit into a test tube. You like, oh, he doing science. But then you see the hoodoo doctor, they making this elixir out of herbs and they pouring it into a bottle. Oh, that's nonsense and devil worship. It's all about how you think. And see what people do, they cast spells with their words. They cast spells with their words, because if you define the word, you can control how you think about a thing. Like if I could define tree, and I defined tree as something, something bad. If I just applied the definition to it and I explained it as something bad and I convinced you to believe that, you would cut down every tree that you see. Like if I convinced you that trees cause cancer, like if I take a newborn baby that don't know nothing, and as they grow up, I tell them, hey, you see that tree out there? Yeah, I see that tree. Well, what that tree does, that tree takes minerals from the earth, it takes sunlight from the sun, and it uses a process called photosynthesis. At the end of photosynthesis, out through the leaves, it emits a gas that we can't see, smell, taste, or touch. That gas is what causes cancer. You know what the people gonna do? If they believe I cast a spell on them. If they believe that about the tree, they're going to cut the tree down. All along, the tree is what's giving them life, and so they cut down so many trees. Theoretically, this is not going to happen overnight, but theoretically, they start running out of oxygen. Things start getting worse. Life start getting bad. Oh shit, I haven't cut down enough trees. Let's cut down more trees because these damn trees fighting back. You see what I'm saying? I put you in a perpetual state to where you are constantly working against yourself. You're constantly putting yourself further and further and further behind the 8 ball because you believe my nonsense. And until you get reprogrammed, until somebody come and can tell you, hey, look, man, the tree don't create cancer, it create oxygen. Dog, you lying to me. I read it in a book. My daddy told me it's cancer. No, it's not cancer, it's oxygen. You're killing yourself. You're killing them. Now I'm going to cut down every tree that I see. Listen to me. They don't want to listen. So they keep cutting down the trees. And if you can't break the damn spell, you got to break the spell. The tree ain't killing you, man. It don't cause cancer. That was a lie. I don't care how many thousands of people believed it. It's just a lie. You see? And so what we have to do, we have to work we got to just break that spell. That's what it is. Lauren Mathis say food, teas, herbs, wine is how my ancestors healed us, and I do the same now. Exactly. You ain't doing no healing without getting something from the earth. Point blank, period. Point blank, you ain't healing nothing if you don't get something from the earth. You ain't making no magic potion out of thin air. But this one has been Marie Laveau, Graveyard Hoodoo, Offerings to the Ancestors, Curses, and Conjure. And we were just looking at a graveyard in New Orleans, St. Louis Cemetery, where several hoodoo items and conjure items were found. Now, the article that we read in the beginning, it doesn't explicitly state that they were going to that graveyard because Marie Laveau was buried there. But it is interesting to note that Marie Laveau was buried there. And we do know that it's confirmed that people were making pilgrimages to her grave. So it's a strong chance that this article, Old Tombs Hoodoos, exist because the ancestor Marie Laveau was there. So again, this one has been Marie Laveau, Graveyard Hoodoo, Offerings to the Ancestors, Curses, and Conjure. I have been rambling. Sometimes when I get going, I get going. I thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for interacting in the chat. I appreciate it. A lot of times when y'all say stuff in the chat, it gives me things to feed off of. It helps to keep me going. Gives me more things that I can talk about. I'm working on another presentation now. And what I'm going to do, I've been saying this for a while, but I'm working on a presentation right now where I'm going to be talking about fake conjurers. And I found several stories in the slave narratives, the quote unquote, the oral histories, where our ancestors were talking about the scam artist conjurer. Because there are some people who may try to they'll try to scam, just like you can have a fake preacher, a fake priest. There's always somebody that'll try to fake the funk, man. And so I just want to do a story about that because I think it's interesting. And honestly, what I really just like to do is I like to bring you guys these written records about our ancestors and what they did. And so I try to make it interesting enough to where an individual will listen to the entire story. But again, what my primary goal is just allowing the ancestors to speak. I'm not a conjurer. I always say that. I gotta be clear about it. I don't I'm not, I've never really done, I've tried some spells in my day, but I can't promote myself as a conjurer, as a root worker. A lot of times that was females. I'm just gonna be honest with you. A lot of times the female, it's like the woman is more connected to that spiritual realm than the men. But there are some men who have the gift as well. Me personally, Ian Williams says, thank you for your knowledge. I'm always grateful. Thank you as well. And hey, you're more than welcome. Me personally, y'all know me. I call myself the real bookworm. I'm a scribe. I was born to write. I read voraciously and I write books. I have 16 published books out now. 2 of those books are of a historical nature of me and my family. I'm currently writing a multi-volume series about the history of my particular ancestors so that our names will live forever and our memory will never die. But I'm the scribe. I'm like a griot. I'm the individual. If we was to look back 1,000 years, I would be the man in the village I would be talking to the root workers and the conjurers. I would be documenting what they allowed me to document, the information that we wanted to pass down. I would be that guy that was studying the ancient records. That's me. I'm a scribe, I'm a writer, I'm the real bookworm. And so my interest in this is to dig up the records that our ancestors left for us, because a lot of us, Sandra Askew says, thank you, Ampool, have a good night. You more than welcome. You have a good night too. A lot of us don't realize how many records we have from the time period of slavery. They don't know. Lauren Mathis says, yep, they sure will. You have to be careful and understand that you have the power within. Exactly. 100%. It's not something to play with. And I believe everybody has their gift. Everybody came to earth for a reason. Everybody came to earth for a reason. They have their gift, they have their purpose. I found mine in writing. I stay in my lane, but I promote what my ancestors taught me, my ancestors believe. And I don't think people know just how many records are out there of our ancestors. And so I'm just trying to bring that to the people and put it in a context in which they can understand and help them understand how we got to where we are. I do a lot of debates a lot too. And one of the main things is people always debating about who are we. They'll be talking about, what tribe in Africa did we specifically come from? Some people try to tie themselves back to Egypt or They say that they the Hebrews of the Bible. You know, we from the Mali Kingdom. We Ifa, we Igbo, and all of that may be true. We have ancestors all over this world, right? We connected to people all over the globe, but directly, what we know for a fact that some people don't accept, but the majority of us understand that when we look back into this period of enslavement in America, we can be like, okay, you know what? I can even pull up records and I can pinpoint names, dates, and locations of my people. You see? And so when we pinpoint them names, dates, and locations of our people, okay, let me learn about them and then connect with their worldview to the worldview of the individuals that lived before them. And I can connect it to me today. Like with my mother, on my mother's side, I can go back to like 1810. On my father's side, with my last name Daniels, I can go back to 1848. So, we can, we can go back several hundred years now, and some of us can go back even further. But when we go back into that time period, there is a plethora of records that we can see, so we can be like, oh, okay, did our ancestors, they created their own religious and spiritual systems right here, spiritual systems that we can use to improve ourselves. We don't need anyone to define things for us anymore. So I thank you guys for tapping in. Thanks for watching. This Matthew Daniels TV. I'm your host, Matthew Daniels, the author, writer, scribe, and the bookworm. But I'm not just a bookworm, world. I am the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. I'm doing the book game like it ain't never been done before, and I'm doing the book game like it'll probably never be done again. As always, thanks for watching, and may your name live on forever, and may your memory family never die. This is my prayer for all of y'all. Hotel, I'm out.